Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this, the first in a series of webinars looking at the drone industry and agriculture. Today's webinar, in conjunction with AutoSpray Systems, is called From Training to Transformation, Building a BVLOS Ready Agri-Drone Industry. We're delighted that this series of webinars is going to be held in conjunction with AutoSpray Systems, and it'll be a series in which we invite a number of different people along to talk about different reactions, different solutions, and different issues and challenges and how we can overcome them. Today's, however, is the first in the series, and we're delighted that we are holding this today. Welcome, first of all. I'll let you be able to read this at the moment. AutoSpray Systems is one of the leading agri-drone revolution in the UK, with the purpose of revolutionising UK agriculture through the safe, smart and sustainable use of autonomous drone technology. ARPAS-UK, if you don't know us already, we're the UK Drone Association. We were founded to support small drone operators, and over the past 12 years have expanded to include all sectors of the industry. We support proportionate regulations and standards, inspire market adoption across industries, and encourage innovation for sustainable growth. Today, we have divided the session up into four. We are going to look at the Beyond Restoration project, a live look at AutoSpray's ecological restoration partnership, the future of BVLOS in UK agriculture, which will be a discussion on innovation and opportunity. 3, training a new generation of operators and building the future workforce. And 4 will be an open Q&A, which is your chance to engage and share your ideas. If you can add questions along the way to the Q&A section and don't add them to the chat, that would be much appreciated. Okay, I am going to hand over to Andy Sproson, who is COO at AutoSpray Systems, to continue for the next section.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming today. Yes, I'm Andy from AutoSpray Systems, and I'm just going to talk to you about our project called Beyond Restoration. But just before I do, I came across this amazing, incredible statistic yesterday. There's more people alive today than have ever died in all of human history. And you know, it took me quite a while to let that sink in, and it's pretty impossible to comprehend. But it just sort of captures how much pressure we're putting on the planet's natural systems. When we look at the biggest industrial polluters, it's not just planes or cars, miles per gallon, it's concrete, cement production and global shipping. These industries hold up and move our civilization, but at what cost? And you know, how do we reverse that? How do we restore what's already been lost? Not in decades, but now at like a true national scale. And that's exactly why we created Beyond Restoration, to show technology, regulations and trust can come together to sort of mechanise this environmental recovery across the UK. So like, what is our vision for this project? This is a UKRI funded project, and we're in partnership with the National Trust, the Woodland Trust and the North Pennines National Landscape. Our sort of shared goal is ambitious, but it's really clear: to restore degraded peatlands and seed new woodlands at scale, using drones, all operating beyond visual line of sight. And we've done all this before. We've done it under visual line of sight, and it worked absolutely brilliantly. We've proved the concept, we've built the techniques, and we've demonstrated real environmental outcomes, but we hit that limit of visual line of sight. The areas we're targeting are mountainous, remote, unreachable by vehicle. These are landscapes where helicopters have been used to transport material for that manual restoration methodology, where people go out onto the moors, for example, and simply spread seeds or plant plugs of sphagnum moss. But as you can imagine, that can only touch a fraction of the land that needs work. All these areas are steep, boggy, fragile. A single quad bike or tractor track, even our own footprints, can damage those very habits that we're trying to save. And for us and them, beyond visual line of sight operations completely sort of change that. By operating over the horizon safely, legally, we can now reach those extreme environments, from the high moors of like the North Pennines to the deep valleys in Wales and Cumbria, all the way down into the southwest in Cornwall, without ever putting a vehicle on the ground. And then this is where sort of scale meets efficiency. Woodlands can be planted in remote upland glades, and peat can be revegetated on the slopes and other areas where people simply can't get there. So its restoration that's both effective and low in impact. Just want to sort of walk you through sort of our partners and some of their sort of ambitions and how we're sort of trying to meet those as a unit together. So the National Trust has pledged to restore all its degraded peatlands by 2035. So that is a major task. Peat covers around 3% of the Earth's surface totally, but it stores twice as much carbon as all the world's forests combined. And when you sort of look into it a little bit more specifically, when peatland is damaged, it releases 23 tonnes of carbon per hectare each year. When I looked into this a little bit further, it's roughly about the same as driving a Volkswagen Golf around 100,000 miles a year annually. So when we restore that single hectare, we're effectively taking out a fleet of cars off the road every single year. And then once restored, the tide sort of reversed. The peatland becomes a carbon sink again. It will take some time because it's so damaged at the moment, but quietly it will begin locking away more and more carbon beneath the surface for centuries to come. The Woodland Trust, they aim to plant 50 million trees by 2030. Again, a massive major task, creating new forests that lock away carbon, they cool the land and they bring biodiversity back to the heart of our countryside and woodlands. And the North Pennines National Landscape, they hold some of the most extensive and ecologically significant peatlands in Europe, if not globally. Their goal is the permanent protection of these areas and continued and ongoing restoration. And that is the same with all our partners. They have an indefinite commitment to climate, to biodiversity, and to all the people who depend on these ecosystems. So together, we sort of, with these organisations, we aren't just like running a project, we're trying to build like a legacy of environmental recovery. And with the Beyond Restoration project, we're giving them the tools, data, and also most importantly, trust, where it can be done faster, safer, excuse me, and more efficiently than ever. And as we've sort of hinted at already, at the heart of this Beyond Restoration project lies the tight relationship between technology and regulation. One doesn't work and cannot work without the other. We'll be operating XAG P100 Pro heavy lift drones, 120 kilo sort of total mass, large capacity, precision engineered aircraft capable of spreading seed, granules and restoration materials with sort of RTK accuracy. And all of this will take place under our operational authorization, which is within the atypical air environment. And as some people will know, this is site specific. So within the project, we're expanding the number of our atypical locations quite dramatically, not just in more sites, but also in larger sites. And for us, a location is quite a large area. Some of these sites, we're going to cover something up to 15,000 hectares, you know, giving us massive and enormous sort of operational flexibility. And with this capability, we can restore within this project 30 to 50 hectares of degraded peat. We'll probably do that in a day or two. And we're going to plant hundreds of thousands of trees all across the UK, opening up sites that were previously sort of inaccessible, too dangerous and written off through not a viable location. So we're moving on from, this is not a concept anymore. This is a fully operational system built to and within UK regulatory standards. we're flying sort of real missions and producing measurable results, and there's a big commercial drive behind this. And to give you a feel for that, the numbers sort of speak for themselves. In the UK, we've about around 3 million hectares of peat. About 80% of that is degraded. We're talking 2.4 million hectares that are awaiting restoration. Current sort of cost to restore peat, you're looking at £5,000 to £10,000 per hectare. So there's a major sort of market value there. Granted, a lot of that cost is down to the earthworks and the groundworks that need to be done. We're going to come in right at the end and reseed and regulate those areas that are prime for that. The government has a target of 30,000 hectares of new woodland every single year. Again, that is a major sort of revenue stream available. This is like the foundation of a new green aviation industry. We anticipate it's worth potentially billions a year, and will create thousands of skilled jobs across the UK. And every hectare restored not only generates revenue, but it cuts flooding, improves water quality, boosts biodiversity, and sequesters carbon. So this is like a real environmental sort of economics. We've got a measurable impact with a national benefit. But also there's a real big sort of human element to this, and none of this works without trust. We've built trust with the regulators who've worked with us to enable the beyond visual line of sight operational authorization. We've got trust from the conservation partners who've opened up their estates and shared their data with us, and trust within our own network of pilots who are proving that drones can deliver genuine ecological value. So the National Trust, the Woodland Trust, and the North Pennines National Landscape they've all taken big, bold steps to embrace this new methodology, combining, like centuries of land stewardship with like a cutting-edge capability. So for us, this partnership of heritage and innovation is at the heart of the project. And just to sort of like wrap up on my sort of little bit, what makes this more meaningful is we've never had UKRI funding before. We've never applied before. We built this sort of business together from the ground up through just experience, determination, and belief when everyone was telling us you can't do this. So we really wanted a project that was practical, useful, ambitious, but something that also pushed those boundaries and delivered those amazing results that I've previously just talked about. And that's pretty much exactly what it is. We're laying the foundation, for trust with these great organisations to scale up UK-wide drone-based restoration. We want to try and go further, faster, and do it with confidence. So at the end of this project for us, this is like a big accelerator that will lead on to other things. Training is one sort of like major element of it. So for us, it's that, but it's not just the future of drones. I suppose it's, the future of restoration, trust, and also our planet. So that's it from me.
Lovely. We will continue now with a discussion between Joe and Andy and Rob.
Hello, so my name is 𝗔𝗴𝗿𝗶 and I'm the chair of the Agri-Environment SIG for ARPAS-UK, and I'm an academic, so I've been working in agriculture and the environment for about 20 years, and I'm currently researching into drones use in agriculture and the environment, and I lecture in environmental management. So have you been able to turn off the slides there, Rob? And if so, shall we get started?
Yes, I believe they're turned off. Andy, thumbs up if they are.
Okay, so I just wanted to start with you by asking you, so beyond the conservation work that you've been doing, how will BVLOS operations work for UK farmers?
Well, thanks, Jo. Farms in the UK are often getting larger, and one of the key advantages of the BVLOS operation is the ability to do obviously larger areas more easily, because relocation is the thing that really burns through time. Last year we were down in Kent. A farmer wanted 30 of his fields seeding while they had a standing crop in them. We had to relocate 20 times to do that. Had we had the ability to do BVLOS, the job through BVLOS, we'd have done that in a fraction of the time. And of course, the old saying, time is money. So efficiency is really what's going to drive this. But at the other end of the scale, where you have small farms or farms in marginal land, hilly, mountainous regions, this will allow the farmer finally to access those areas that he has not previously been able to access, or critically, he does access in a very dangerous manner on his quad bike or tractor. So this will give them a much safer way of reaching those tricky areas.
Yes, that sounds like a real benefit. So I just wanted to come back to you, Andy, and say, so what do you think is the most important strategic shift in policy or skills that's needed for BVLOS to become common practice in UK agriculture?
There's been a few things recently. So we are the SORA framework has come into effect this year, and within that there's a foundation of remote pilot competence levels, and we've got GVC level 1 and level 2. Level 2 being the key to unlocking operations in the atypical environment. So all that framework's there. We've got the AAE policy from the CAA. We've got the training requirements from them as well. We're in our AE, we're pulling in that level 2 sort of capability. We've applied for that. And that will give the springboard to make it a lot more common practice across UK agriculture and environment locations. But just building on that SORA sort of framework a little bit as well, we are going to be away from people, and you look at your ground risk and your air risk. We're flying low and we're flying away from people. Yes, we're heavy and yes, we're big. Well, through that framework, we come out quite, on a low score. So let's hope we can keep up the good work and build up a framework so that the CAA get a chance to look at PDRA options.
It sounds like a lot of work. So just to either of you, what do you think about Beyond Restoration in terms of its collaboration with major organisations like the National Trust? Has there been business lessons that you've learned from bringing the new technology to perhaps slower developing traditional sectors?
Shall I go here, Andy, or?
Yeah.
I think when you say sort of slower or more traditional developing, actually, I think that's really just about building trust. It's something that takes a long time. And when you're dealing with national institutions like the National Trust, the Woodland Trust, these are high-profile organisations that members of the public trust. They trust them for their recreation, they trust them for advice. So it's only natural, I think, that they're going to be circumspect about jumping into something that could be, could, if it went wrong, have a detrimental impact on their reputation. So the business lesson, and to be honest, it's not a new business lesson, is all about take your time to build trust. Don't rush into this, because if you do, you will miss something, and then you will really have problems on your hand.
Yes, I think that's really important. So coming back to you, Andy, what do you think are the biggest barriers that we need to overcome to sell these BVLOS solutions directly to farmers?
Sort of follows on from what I said before, really. I think the barrier to entry is really high for an individual farmer to maybe operate on this level with some of the tactical and technical mitigations we've got in place, like ADSB in and out, you know, the electronic conspicuity elements that we've had to address to get the permission. But with us, we're building this framework to enable our pilot network to fulfill that need. We're training pilots to fulfill that need. So to begin with, before it does become more commonplace, and maybe a PDRA option would cover that, for now we've got the contracting capability to fulfill those needs.
Well, it does sound really technical, but just giving another question to both of you. So do you think that BVLOS operations will change the job of modern agricultural agronomists or farm managers? And how should they prepare to work alongside this new technology?
There's two parts of this. There's what we can do now, and there's what we can do in the future, because I would love to see beyond visual line of sight being extended to smaller drone platforms, to the mapping platforms, because of course everything starts with information, and if a farmer or agronomist was able to map an entire farm from a central nest location on the farm, ideally autonomously, this would be absolutely superb. And you know, I know that with the DJI drone in a box solution, this would be a superb option. So the technology is there, and hopefully we'll get there on the licensing side. But at the moment where we are, and how this will impact the agronomist and the farmer, is in the ability to act in a timely and targeted manner. Because we're able to use prescription maps and use variable rate application of the chemicals, we're able to put them where they're needed, when they're needed, because of course the drones can travel when the ground is wet and not suitable for large tractors, because the enemy of every big combine harvester and tractor is concrete-like ruts in the field that have been put in when the farmer just had to get into the field to put his applications on. So the initial impact on agronomists is going to be that ability to be timely and targeted with their applications. And of course, we're also getting pressure from the chemical manufacturers who are wanting to illustrate more targeted use of their chemicals, because every single active ingredient in agriculture is under some form of pressure to reduce its applied volumes. And this gives those interested and willing to take the next step a real opportunity to prove their environmental credentials.
It sounds like there's a lot of challenges in communication and connecting people together. So what is the most common misconception that you face when discussing large-scale BVLOS operations with people?
I'll start here, Rob, if you don't mind. We've already had one in the chat, and Eleanor probably told me off for sort of answering this, but it's a fact that we have a limitless permission. We are not limited by the aviation authority in terms of our distance to fly. We can fly, provided we've got that C2 connection, we can fly whatever distance we see fit within the site location, within the permission. So like I mentioned before, we're going to be targeting one site that's 15,000 hectares. So think about it, 15 kilometers long, for example. We could fly that whole length under the current authorization we have. But also that is the main misconception. We have no visual mitigation. We can fly it, but also the traditional thoughts on beyond line of sight is always distance and length and how far can you fly. But for us as an agricultural operation, we just don't want to watch. We do want to watch the drone, but we don't always want to or need to watch the drone, and that can increase efficiency. And that's the main element there. If a farmer or a spray contractor can operate a drone without consistently watching it, there are other things that need to be done during the operation. But from a ground perspective, you're increasing that efficiency.
And of course, efficiency does mean money, doesn't it? So you're cutting your costs for the farmer, which could be a big benefit. So just to either of you then, so this trial, does it involve careful monitoring? How will the industry ensure that the efficacy tests for BVLOS applications are maintained? So for seeding or spraying, or how will that be measured long term?
Well, Andy, I'll jump in here then. But please feel free to add or correct me. The beauty of all of our flights is they are fully logged digitally. So every flight has a full flight record showing what was done, where it was done, under what conditions the seed was applied. And to be honest, HSE love this approach because typically when a farmer has applied his product with his tractor, he'll go back to the office, write up the report, and while every farmer I know is absolutely honest as the day is long, they're probably not tied into as tight a visual regulation as we are, because we know what the wind was because it's pulled through from the Met Office, so we can't cheat the system in any way. But another big aspect of this is the fact that we've got access to the flight logs of thousands of operations across the country through our pilot network. So all of the pilots who are operating in both the BVLOS and beyond visual line of sight, we can see those flights, we can monitor them, we can look at them. And this is what underpins the CAA's confidence in what we're doing, is that we can show, as a matter of fact, that the flights have been carried out safely and within all of the guidelines, and that's what's giving, or that's what's proving the importance of the monitoring to both us and the CAA.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of safety aspects going on behind the scenes. Did you want to jump in there, Andy, with something?
Yeah, just wanted to add that we share data with the Aviation Authority for every beyond visual line of sight operation that is undertaken. We submit monthly data returns so they can build a picture of what is happening in that airspace, what is the mid-air collision sort of risk, and all these things go back and underpin further policy concepts, further sort of developments of the AAE policy, no doubt. Plus, I just wanted to quickly add as well, it's not the Beyond Restoration is a project we're doing, but the permission we have to operate is a full commercial permission. It is not a trial authorization.
So it sounds like you've got a lot of safety aspects going on behind the scenes, but I was just wondering, so in this high profile project with rigorous safety measures in place, how will Beyond Restoration help build public and industry confidence in beyond visual line of sight safety?
Do you want to take this, Andy, or shall I?
Yeah, go on, then I'll carry on. For us, it just sort of comes back to trust. The public has a buy-in and a trust with the Woodland Trust and the National Trust, the national institutions, and I'm sure we've all visited the National Trust site at some point, even going back as far as a school trip maybe, I don't know. But working with these partners on these projects, it gives it that national significance. It gives us this platform like what we're doing today to talk and educate everyone, not just in drones, but outside of our little drone bubble, to show sort of what we're capable of and how, we're going to beat that drum, drones for good.
And just to add to that, Andy, the people who are on this call here have a natural interest in drones, and it's the public that we really need to, reach out to, and we want to show them when we're operating in a field. I'd be amazed how many people come up to us and say, it's so nice to see drones being used for a sort of positive use. They're used to drones preventing them going on holiday or, causing some security issue. So to see them flying at 3 meters above a crop while they're applying fertilizer or something like that, it brings, really does bring confidence through in the public.
Sounds really interesting. So has AutoSpray been building a skilled workforce, and what is the most crucial non-flying skill that someone like me might need if I wanted to become more involved in this, to become a BVLOS pilot in the future? So would I need business skills or safety knowledge or just data analysis? What sort of aspects would I need to become a trained pilot?
Joe, you'd be great at this, because coolness under pressure is, I think, the #1 requirement. Because, of course, the pilots who come on the course have already been through a week-long training course to become agricultural pilots. So that's step one. The second step is they then have to have plenty of hours under their belt in a whole wide range of agricultural, forestry, horticultural jobs. So they will already have come across the issues that they are potentially going to face in a BVLOS operation. But the two critical factors that we look for, and we looked for in selecting these 10 pilots, was their ability to remain cool under pressure, but critically it was a problem-solving mentality. You will come across issues, that's without doubt, and it's how do you go about solving those when you are in the middle of nowhere, possibly without a great deal of connectivity back to Andy, for example. So we want people who can think on their feet and come up with practical, safe solutions.
Yes, that sounds like something I might just have to have a bit more training before I can tackle. So going beyond agriculture then, what is the most promising new industry or application that you believe will adopt this large-scale BVLOS technology next?
Shall I go, Andy, or do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Look,
I suppose for us, we believe it's forestry. It's commercially driven. The nature of the locations are extremely difficult. You have a look on YouTube, you'll see us having maybe a bit of a moan about the locations we had in Scotland, just how difficult and hard work it was. This permission removes all of that. We would have done that from the safety of the side of the lock with a brew. But yeah, forestry, the size of the locations, it's just perfect for this type of beyond visual line of sight operation.
It sounds rather attractive, standing by the side of a lock with a brew. I quite fancy that now. But
sorry, Joe, I'm just going to interrupt and say we want to think about moving on to the next section.
So I was just going to ask one more question, if that's okay. Is that all right, Eleanor?
Yes,
so I was just going to say,
yes, that's fine.
So what do you think is the single clearest indicator that we should look for over the next 12 months to show that BVLOS is successful? Is it moving forward from a pioneering project to a wide-scale commercial reality? How will we know that?
Joe, there's no need to look forward into the next 12 months. In about 2 weeks, we're up in Scotland working with Scottish Water. Wow. They have a large site up there that they're looking to reseed, and it's an area you just can't get to. So this was, before the first pilots have been trained, there's already commercial pull, and so what you will see, if you want to monitor how this has been successful, follow the social media feeds from AutoSpray, but also for the people who are trained, because remember, it's not us that delivers these projects, it's the trained people in our pilot network. So we get to do some of them because we can't resist getting out into the countryside, but the majority of these projects will be delivered by our pilots.
Well, thank you very much. That was really interesting. So I'll hand you back to Eleanor now, and good luck with everything. It sounds amazing.
Thanks, Joe.
It's going to be a very quick handover from me, because I'm going to pass straight on to Rob so that he can continue on the next section.
Thank you, Eleanor. And Andy, give me a thumbs up if you can see my slides. Perfect. Well, what I was going to talk to you about, guys, is the training aspect of things and the beyond visual line of sight. And if people know me, they'll know that I take a fairly visual approach to this. If you want to get under the hood and ask complicated questions, please do, because Andy's looking forward to those. I can help you on the more general side. What has made this project possible is confidence. And it's confidence, first of all, from the regulator, from the Civil Aviation Authority, confidence in our training, confidence in the fact that Andy and Scott have been training pilots as an RAE for many, many years, but also confidence in the pilots that we have trained, the visibility of the data and their flight records, so that they can have tangible evidence about the safety and build that confidence. We have to have confidence in our pilots, and you see a group of them there. You couldn't meet a more trustworthy and confidence-inspiring bunch of guys. And we also have to have confidence in our equipment, in our processes, and in the technology that underpins those. And we've been very fortunate in working literally hand in glove with XAG. We have a complete data sharing policy where XAG's research and planning work and all of their experimental work is open to us so that we can really understand how the equipment works. But I will move on to what actually happens on a training course, because this is a rather intense 4 or 5 days that the pilots spend with us. And it starts with the hard work. Actually, day one, I think, is the hardest. Certainly, it's the hardest for Andy because he's on his feet all day. You can see him sweating there. This is a full briefing on the details of the operational authority. I can see the questions in the chat there about what do we do about footpaths, what do we do about roads, and these are questions that everybody has got for us. So this initial briefing session covers the operational authority, but it also covers the equipment and the technology that we need to enable the BVLOS. And we then get into flight planning and how we actually are going to go about these tasks. Because remember that everyone around the table is time served. They have got many, many hours under their belt in a whole variety of circumstances. So they know what they're talking about. And we're just adding that extra layer of how to make this applicable in the BVLOS scenario. So once we finish in the classroom, we get to relax in the field. And here is Scott relaxing as we set up the drone at 7 a.m. and flock after flock of Canada geese flew over, all of them at an exact 15-meter height, which of course was precisely how high Scott was intending to fly. So we waited for these to clear, and they'd all been scared by emergency helicopters that were operating on the M6, which is nearby, because the area that we were operating in is just outside Manchester, just next to Barton Aerodrome, and I think they'd been scared there. But then it was final preparations before the flight. We'd made sure there were great facilities on site for everyone to use, as nerves were getting a little much for people, but we'll move on to the real action. The first thing we have to do is get the flights set. We were checking the KP index. There were some questions around the KP levels, so we were digging a little deeper into that, looking at local KP levels from the UK observatories. But these are real projects where we're tackling the real problems as they come up. And you see Scott here working with Kev from QRS and the guys in the background looking at their next aspect of what they're going to undertake. Because then we've got to rummage around in our sci-fi props department, which is what someone called these bits and pieces. But these are the ADS-B transponders that we attach to the aircraft. And on the right, you can see the first draft radar that we have. And we are the aircraft in the dead center of the screen. And you can see there's another aircraft at 1,700 feet just passing over us. And so we are constantly monitoring the airspace because we are in active, airspace that is, that we have to monitor very, very carefully. So all of this equipment is attached to the drone. And then we're actually able to get up and running. So James here was first out of the blocks. He's planned his route. And if you look on the right-hand side, you can see a shot of his screen, and it says he's hovering there. And if you look down just towards the bottom third of the screen, you'll see that he's at exactly 1,000 meters from his takeoff point. So the way that we operated was they would take off and we would do a communication check with the drone at 250 meters, at 500 meters, at 750 meters, at 1,000 meters before we entered the operations site. And once we were in the operations site, the drone would take over autonomously and carry out its work. So these first few flights, everyone was very nervous about them, but they quickly realized that actually with the mitigations that we have in place, with the connectivity and the redundancy that we have in place, that actually there really wasn't a great deal to worry about, and these flights were exactly the same as every other. However, you just couldn't see the drone, and that's really unnatural. So we actually evolved the whole training process organically. And you can see here, after the first flight had been completed by each of the pilots, we then went into a back-to-back training session. So the pilot is on the left, that's James with the white cap on, and you have Simon, who's his observer and assistant on the right. So Simon is monitoring the drone's progress, and the pilot on the left he's actually got his eyes closed, he's concentrating, and he's listening to the verbal commands from Simon. And of course, everything is reversed back to front, so they have to have a very clear communication policy between them. And this proved really very useful. But then we took it a step further and we separated the observer from the pilot. We disorientated the pilot and the drone, and then they had to land it again, this time only using radio communication. And this moved the complexity up a couple of notches, because we then, and after each flight, we would have a full debrief, which were quite animated at times in the best possible way, but there were very definite views, and it was really interesting to see how the process evolved throughout the week and became so much smoother as we approached the end. Because of course we did complete the week. We have now 5 fully trained BVLOS operators out there who are ready now to deliver work. And as a little treat, we actually then got to go to Barton Aerodrome to visit the ATC tower there. And they even, they explained they'd been monitoring our flights, watching us operate, and had us on their inbound board, which was really quite nice to see. And we got to ask lots of in-depth questions about how they saw our operations. And then as a final treat, we were able to reveal the next generation of agricultural drones that we're looking to bring into the market, when we had one of these fly in from Trump's Air Force, which was an amazing sight, seeing these come into land. And we're investigating whether or not we can get atomizers fitted to the bottom of these and get them on some of our spray jobs. But with that, I'll hand back to Eleanor for some questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. And I love the photos as they come through. You've really captured the sense of the camaraderie, both in the training sessions as well as actually the discussion, the animation, as you said, behind all of that. And it's good to see how engaged all your students were there too. And it's not just sort of people listening in a classroom environment, but it's very, very hands-on.
Absolutely, it's the epitome of hands-on, and it's yes, but it's the only way to really get to grips with it.
Exactly. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions that were asked early on. before I reminded everyone about the Q&A section. So the first question was with regards to AAE, so aid to player environment, there doesn't look like much infrastructure. So does that constrain you on private property, and how do you deal with footpaths, etc.?
I suppose from that perspective, you've got a ground risk and an air risk, and you've got to sort of anticipate and plan for if they change. Therefore, are you outside of your location? For us, we would be confined to the border of that location, some of which do include roads, footpaths, things like that. But we have a procedure in place to cross those areas if we deem it an operational requirement, or it's simply safe enough. If it's not safe, it doesn't happen, we don't do it. But we have a procedure to sort of check that as that situation comes up. Yeah,
that's great. That's very reassuring as well. The second question was, are you operating BVLOS or BVLOS with VM, visual mitigation? And leading on from that, how do you ensure you remain in the AAE?
Full beyond visual line of sight, no visual mitigation. So yeah, no observers are required to operate. We remain confined to the location. You've got standard geocaching technologies which are embedded onto a drone, just like most drones out there. But we do have electronic conspicuity sort of devices to broadcast our position for to maintain those levels of visibility and safety to other air users. Plus, we have a validation tool, like which Rob mentioned. We call it the ground radar, but that gives us that independent assurity that we are broadcasting but remaining with where we intend to be.
Great. Is your training undertaken under your OSC, and what are the additional controls required compared to operational flying, a controlled ground area?
Sorry, just repeat that again. I'm just trying to read it so I can catch every point.
Okay. So it's the top question in the Q&A. Is your training undertaken under your OSC? And what are the additional controls required compared to operational flying? Is it a controlled ground area?
It is, yeah. So we have trainee pilots, and it's not a case where you can just simply get the controls and fly. It's a progressive approach where we build that capability, leading to the elements that you saw Rob sort of present, where it leads to someone doing a flight. But we are always on their shoulder. They are not independent pilots until our internal training sort of procedure confirms that. And yeah, we operate in controlled ground areas. Yeah.
And it is undertaken on our OSC. So these people will be named operators on our BVLOS OSC.
Yeah.
Great. Here's a question for you, Rob, so stay where you are. You mentioned DJI drones in agriculture. Please, can you expand on the use cases? Thank you.
Yes, look, we're big DJI fans. We all use them in most projects that we're working on. The application work we do with the XAG products, because those are the ones that we have the spray drift data and the spread data for. But the area that the DJI drones are going to really do excel at is in that mapping and providing the information for the prescription maps that the big XAGs will then apply to. So yes, we do see those being increasingly useful. Now, I'll bow to Andy's expertise in this area. I believe there are some communication issues at the moment that affect their ability to work with beyond visual line of sight. Now, that's not my area at all. So whether they will certainly be incredibly useful as mapping tools, we would love to see a drone in the box with the ability to map and update on a regular basis to give the agronomist that information. And I really keep my fingers crossed that that happens. But to be honest, the BVLOS side, which is what we're talking about today, I'm not quite sure how that's going to, or where DJI are up to with that, because that's not our primary focus area.
Great, thank you. We have a question here, which I'm not sure is necessarily quite so relevant to today's conversation. Have you looked at any of the challenges to BVLOS in military LFAs, which is a new acronym on me? So if anyone wants to start off with letting me know what that is, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, sure. I'm guessing it's low flying areas.
I was about to say, yeah, that came across me. Have you had issues and challenges on that side?
Yes. So we've got a site in Scotland that's right smack bang in the middle of one of those areas. But again, it's that sort of trust relationship and agreeing those procedures with those organisations. We will always give way to manned aviation, and it's about managing your operation and their operation. If they've got a training schedule, get on the phone and figure it out with them. They're more than amenable in our experience. And it's just that sort of human back and forth. If they're like, oh, we've got these exercises running 9 till 11, okay, we'll start at 12, and just agree the times we'll take off. We agree to sort of inform them when we lift, when we land. They know that that area is safe. There could be something that we're not aware of, given it's a military sort of training area, but there could be some sort of threat they're dealing with. So we're going to open those that communication level, and we'll always land and give way to sort of those areas. And we're going to be flying in some MOD sites anyway, part of the project for beyond restoration. So yeah.
And of course, we've got the radar there as a visual warning. But of course, I suppose some of these things can happen very quickly, can't they, Andy?
Thank you. And that was a very relevant question, and thank you, Jack, for asking that. So one of the things that today's webinar is leading on to is the launch of the ARPAS-UK Agri and Environmental Special Interest Group. So I'm going to ask Joe and Alex to talk a little bit about what this will be and how it will run, and what we can expect from that. Joe and Alex, you might need to unmute.
So do you want to start off there, Alex? You're still muted.
Yeah, sure. So hi everybody. So yeah, Aleks Kowalski, I'm the chair of the BVLOS part of the Special Interest Groups for ARPAS-UK. Yeah, one of the things that we've kind of realised potentially with the start of the Agri-Environment Special Interest Group is there are many disparate organisations that certainly I've picked up over the last 2 to 3 years, such as DEFRA, Natural England, NIAB, Woodlands Trust, National Trust, etc. The issue that certainly I've encountered is there are individual organisations like AutoSpray, like others, that they can go to and work a particular product or a particular skill set, but there is no pan association to pan association. So if, for example, DEFRA wants to engage with the trade association or with drones, who do they go to? How do they engage? So that was the rationale for kind of starting the Agri-Sig environment from a top-down perspective. But then from a bottom up, if you are a drone operator that, for example, has been in construction or in a different part of agriculture, how do you engage with those large end user associations to understand, for example, if you've never worked with a farmer before, what are their needs? How do they engage? What areas are there potentially demands? Is it in kind of DJI scanning and so on, or is it in more in the kind of AutoSpray spraying and seeding? So it's actually having both top down association level and bottom up for drone operators to have a method to engage with multiple different stakeholders in the kind of agri and environment area. And that's one of the reasons I think why we instigated it. And then Joe's very kindly stepped in as chair. But I don't know if you've got any additional thoughts, Joe, you want to mention.
Yeah, so I feel that this is quite a big opportunity, actually, because although these organisations are quite desperate, then the forestry, agriculture and environment don't normally talk together about the way that land is managed or how the airspace above land is managed. And so bringing everyone together to talk about drones could actually have quite a positive impact right across the whole sector, to bring people together to talk to each other about other aspects of land management later on. And the way that I see the SIG operating is that people can have someone they can contact, they can ask them a question. I won't know all the answers, but I can actually find the answers and challenge that for them if there's an issue that they're concerned about. So there's someone they can reach out to and ask information to, or ask questions of, and they can have confidence and trust that someone will come back to them, and it's completely independent. So we're just interested in the interests of the UK.
That's really interesting and very good to hear how collaboratively we're sort of aiming to work on this side of things. I think the other side of it that's really exciting is that, as I mentioned right at the beginning, this webinar is the first in a series, and this series of webinars looking at sort of the frontiers of Agri-Tech is going to be run in conjunction with AutoSpray Systems across the next 12 months. The next webinar that will take place in November will be with 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗏 at PwC. The date is yet to be announced, but I will follow up with all of you to encourage you to come along, called Picking Winners and Net Risks, in November. Probably mid-November at the moment, but we're waiting for a final date on that at the moment. But this series of webinars will sort of run almost as the discussion side of things in parallel to the work being done within the SIG as well. So I think that's going to be a really exciting sort of offshoot. So questions that are raised within the webinar can be explored in further depth within the SIG as well, which I think is a really interesting way of working. And would you say that's something that you've seen before, Joe? Do you think this is a relatively new way of running a special interest group, sort of having a discussion area run in parallel to looking at some of the nitty-gritty, finer details behind it?
Well, I do work in stakeholder engagement, and I think that this is a innovation really in the way that people are coming together using technology to bring people together across different parts of the UK to actually talk to each other, to raise concerns and get answers, rather than just being left isolated, concerned about issues or complaining to the wrong people about things. So I think it's a way of bringing everybody together and raising those concerns, and then going deeper into the issues to make sure everyone's heard and we get answers that we're all happy with, that we can move forward with in the industry.
That's great. I've got a question, I think. Oh, no, there's a comment. 2 seconds. That's fine. Do we have any more questions at the moment that anyone would like to ask? Obviously, given the collaborative nature of what we're planning to do, you are more than welcome to get in touch again afterwards to ask questions, either directly with Rob and Andy at AutoSpray Systems, or via Joe and everyone here at ARPAS-UK. Alex, is there anything else? Rob, Andy, is there anything else you would like to add at this stage? And then I'm going to come back to you for a final word, Joe.
I've just got one thing. I had the pleasure of bumping into the Department for Business and Trade at DroneX, and it was just like a complete case in point. They're aware of the work we're doing, but as a private business, they wanted an independent organisation to liaise with and see how they can support the work in this area. So I think that the creation of a SIG in this area has been desperately needed.
That is very positive news, and I'm going to follow up with you on that afterwards, Andy. Rob, is there anything else you would like to add at this moment?
Muted. You're on mute.
It was a nonsense comment anyway. I'm just looking forward to lunch, so it's probably best on mute anyway.
Alex, you're on mute.
No, I just want to say thanks everyone. Just want to say thanks everyone for joining this first meeting. As you said, it's the first of 6 or 7, so do tune into all of them. It's, as you said, with people like 𝗙𝗿𝗵𝗏𝗧𝗲 next month, talking about kind of net risk and so on. I think there's a lot of interesting topics that we've got lined up. Hopefully they'll be shared shortly, but we've got a plan, I think, for the next 6 to 7 months. This is the first of many, and as we said, the SIG is then to take that, run with it, and then address what yourselves might have in the chat or in the video calls that potentially helps you to grow your businesses or support the wider agriculture environment industry. So thank you.
That's great. And Jo, a final word from our special interest group chair.
So I just wanted to reassure people that I am contactable, and I've got a new web page going up onto the site where they can contact me. There's an email address. I'm ready to listen if you have a concern. I want to hear from you if you've got a great idea that you want to put into practice, or if you have any other opportunities that you'd like to explore with groups of people and discuss that, or if you'd like to join the SIG, please contact me so that I can help you to achieve those things. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you very much to everyone, but in particular to Rob and Andy for starting this off and kicking off what promises to be a great series of webinars alongside the special interest group. We will be in touch and we will follow up with everyone to send you all a recording of today and relevant sort of follow-up information. And in due course, I will be back to let you know when the next webinar is taking place so that you can sign up again. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for coming along today. I hope you enjoyed it, found it interesting and useful, and we will be in touch. Okay, then. Thank you then.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.